ladies, I'm Rachel Barnes, and I wanted to share with you today something that was an amazing success at an event that we had recently for property women. So we're doing this member spotlight segment, and there's two awesome ladies who did a presentation for our Adelaide networking group. Now, if you're part of Property Women, you understand what we do here is inspire, educate, and network. And you want to put all of that together because that's what you're going to receive in the next, say, 45 minutes. While these two wonderful ladies tell us about a deal that they did jointly together and with their husbands. It's going to be really good fun, so be prepared. And the information that you'll get today, just have to confirm that there's no advice given here. Remember that. Everything, big disclaimer, everything that we tell you is from our opinions, from our experience, and from our suggestions. So always get your own independent legal advice before you do anything. Anyway, I don't want to go into too much of this because this is such a great deal. These ladies are going to share with you so much information. So be prepared, get a notepad, make sure that you're sitting comfortably because we're about to begin and this is awesome. I'll start off with giving you a bit of an introduction. The first one I want to introduce to you is Anthea Gregg. Now, she's from South Australia, as both of these ladies are. Great place to live, by the way, and great place for property. And Anthea has been investing for some time, and she'll tell you a little bit more about herself. But one of the great things is that she does a lot of work with investors, and she's also a loan broker, so she comes in really handy. Anthea, tell us a little bit about yourself, and welcome.
Thank you. Well, as I'm a grandmother, and I started investing about 10 years ago when just a simple corner cut off, and I became a bit of a property seminar junkie. I was working for a medical company and then I became a mortgage broker, and I just kept on going with more and more developments over time. And eventually we've got to where we're probably going to be building 29 homes in the next 2 years between my husband and I.
That's awesome.
But I'm also a mortgage broker, so I think the two blend quite well together.
Well, they do. It's nice when you can find loans for the deals, isn't it? This comes in really important.
And I do joint ventures with people. As you'll see, this one's a joint venture that Robin and I did together.
Excellent. Thanks for that. I'll get back to you in a second because you're going to be driving this presentation. Now, Robin and I have known each other for many years. She's been a member of Property Women for I don't know how long, probably as long as me, which is about 10 years, 11 years, something like that. Time flies when you're having fun. And we've done a lot of sort of workshops and things together, so it's been awesome. Robin is one of those people that thinks outside the square, and I can talk more about her because I know her a bit more than I do Anthea. But I do know that she's always eager to find deals and look at, good opportunities. So I'll let Robin introduce herself a little bit more. Robin, tell us more about yourself.
Hello, thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Anthea. Well, I too have invested in property for a long time, probably my husband and I for about 10, 15 years. We did a lot of buy and hold to start with. That didn't really work that well for us, so I finally figured out what it is I love to do, and I love property development. So I've been doing what I can over the last few years to head a lot more in that direction. I too am balancing husband, grandchild and children. Life's pretty good really. I love property developing because it gives me the kind of flexibility that other things don't. And it's really good to be in a joint venture with somebody like Anthea, who is a mortgage broker and has a lot of experience too. And that helps the deal along the way as well. I'm always looking for people that are interested in joint ventures and good deals, just like Anthea.
Awesome. See, that's what inspiring other people is great because that helps you find joint venture partners when other people get inspired by seeing what you can do. Finding the money for it is always good, isn't it, Anthea? Otherwise you're stuck even if you find a good deal. Yes. And then finding the right people to do a joint venture with. And you do have to be careful who you pick because you need to make sure that you've got the right core values, you're on the same page, you've got the same ethics and understanding. And then from there, obviously, it takes a little bit of tweaking, again, to make sure you've got the right personalities and skills for the deal. But the girls will explain that. And what I'm going to do now is hand over the reins completely to Anthea. And she's going to take us through this presentation with Robin, and I'll just butt in every now and again because I can't help myself. So, Anthea, over to you.
Thank you. This is a deal that Robin and I and our husbands did together, and we're going to tell you the history of how we came across it. And over a period of time, all of the things that happened during this deal that we never expected would happen. and how we overcame them and dealt with them. But first of all, I'm just going to get Robin to tell you how we found this particular site. Robin?
Right. As I said, I've done a lot of investing, and I invested overseas, interstate, and everywhere else. And it was actually my brother that spoke to me. He'd read a book that said a guy had made as much money and found as much excitement from property investing in his own backyard. So I decided that, okay, I understood my own backyard. Let's go to where I grew up. And I decided it was time to go and find my own deal, because whatever the agents were offering me, it didn't seem to work out financially or term-wise. So I put a letter together and mailed out a whole lot of letters, and I got a fair bit of response, and this was one of them.
Cool.
And this is the letter that Robin writes. Pretty simple little letter. Take time to have a read.
I can read that. My name is Robin, and I'm a local developer and builder. I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss your future plans for your property at. If you would like to catch up and discuss this, please call me. I'm not a real estate agent and act completely independently. My success has come from conducting honest business. My clients have always taken significant rewards when working together with me. I look forward to meeting you. I think that's really good, isn't it? Because you cover the honesty, you cover the fact that you're not involved in a profession, you know, that's sort of being a real estate agent or anything. And it's nice and straight to the point. Love it.
Not too complicated. I used to get a really good response when you can address them to the individuals. Unfortunately, South Australia has lots of privacy laws, which other states don't have. So it's challenging to get the owner's name, but it just means more letters you still get a response from it. So it's all pretty good. And I think I sent out about 50 letters there, and I got 3 responses. 2 were just to say hello, no thank you, and 1 was just to, it was this gentleman. Yeah.
Well, so you never know, do you, who's waiting there? I mean, there's a system overseas, and you talked about when you invested overseas. There's a system where you can have make, be, sell, where people can list a property on their market overseas where they're thinking about selling but haven't actually got around to listing it. And if you think about it, that's quite a good idea, and you're really just facilitating that already. Like, if you're even thinking about it, call me. I think it's a great idea.
So just take note of the date there. That was September 2014 that Robin sent that letter out. And then just to keep a little record of the dates as we go along, just to give you an idea of how long this sort of took to get through. So that was the site. And when, Robin, do you want to just talk about some of the due diligence that you did prior to coming to me with this one?
What did I do prior to coming to you? Well, I freaked out for a start, because I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? That's the first thing I did. I spoke to Rachel. We discussed about on selling it. I spoke to a town planner. I spoke to a few people trying to figure out what I could get on it and how I was going to make it work. And you and I had met and we knew each other. We've been talking about room renting, and we developed a bit of a relationship, and I knew you had a pretty good understanding. So that's what I'd done until I came to you. Most people have told me it's too big and, you know, it costs too much money, really.
So what we came up with was that it looked like we should be able to get approval for 8 new dwellings on this site. And as you can see, each side of it, one side has double-storey dwellings and the other side has multiple residential units, single story. So it was already quite medium density in the area, and it was a lovely long block, and all up nearly 2,000 square metres of land. So Robin then went through the motions of, and as we said, if we got it under contract subject to council consent, we could always assign it. We're very lucky in South Australia that we can assign our contract for an assignment fee, which ends up being the profit, without paying stamp duty. So please check in your states wherever you're from, because it's not the same. It's not the same in every state, but it certainly is applicable in South Australia at this point in time. Go SA, yes. So I guess these are some things you could talk to, Robin, as well, about. It was an expensive site to buy in the first place. The owner or the chap that was selling it was wanting in the high 900,000, 950,000 for it. to do that development yourself, you would have needed quite a fair bit of money behind you. It needed somebody who had some skill, and I came to the party with some skills in developing, someone that had some time, someone that had money, and someone that had borrowing. So when Robin and I pulled our assets together, what I had was the time and the skill and some money, and Robin had very good, and her husband had very good borrowing capacity.
I want to just note there, you said we put our assets together.
Yes.
And I like the way you did that, because it's not, we're talking about property assets together, we're talking about personal assets.
Yes.
Skills and your time and your borrowing capacity, because people often forget that they are their own best asset. So thanks for bringing that up.
And we complemented each other in that way, because we, you know, I needed the borrowing. My husband and I already maxed out with all the property developments that we're doing, but we had some money in our super fund that we could put towards it, and you know, share some share of the profit. So it came together that we put together a deal. But first of all, Robin had to negotiate with, and we'll call him Mr. A. Robin, do you want to talk to this one?
Better than Mr. X.
Yes. Mr. A was he was living in what was his mother's estate house. He had some other properties, and it had all gone through probate. That had happened a while ago, and his brother had contested the will. So his brother wanted more money from the will, and he was given some more money than what the will had said. Mr. A had managed to be able to pay his brother some of the cash of the money he was given, but he didn't have enough money to pay him all of the money. So to be able to do that meant he needed to sell this home to pay the brother out one small portion, and then he could move on to one of the other properties that he owned and live there. So, yeah.
So that was the reason he was selling.
Yes.
It was because he needed to pay his brother out.
Yes.
So
And while we're on that, because that's important, isn't it? Understanding why somebody wants to sell.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Their motivation.
Yes, their motivation, and understanding too if they need their money in a hurry, why they want to sell. In this instance, he was in no hurry. He just wanted to appease the brother. He had lots of things to do to move out. So a long settlement could be negotiated, which is really important to us as a developer, because it gives us the opportunity to get everything through council and make sure everything's hunky-dory before we have to move forward and start putting cold hard cash in there.
Cool.
I never set foot in the house. I negotiated this with him on his driveway, because ultimately to me it was just about the land. It wasn't about what was in or outside of the house. And yes, so yeah.
You'll understand why she didn't want to go in the house later in the presentation. So how did you come to the agreement on the price?
Really, I knew what had sold in the area. Remember, as I was saying about my own backyard, I knew some land around that size. As a matter of fact, I'd even sold some around that size in the area, and I've got about that much. He told me that agents had told him that he could get $1 million or over, but he didn't trust them, which is one of the reasons why he was dealing direct. So I just, sort of picked a number, and it seemed to work. A little bit lower than I thought that I wanted to pay. I would have paid a little bit more, but he was more than happy with that.
So just getting back, so you said you just picked a number, but you'd worked out what was comparable and what you could still do a deal for to make it viable.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't just, we had that one.
No.
We've done a feasibility.
Yes, we've done feasibilities, and I was also aware that it was a fair market price. Yeah.
But we didn't want to pay that price unless we had approval for 8. So we got an agreement from him that we could contract it in December, subject to approval for 8 dwellings by the 31st of August 2015. And we really needed all of that time, because the council take quite a while to approve things. And although they say it should only take 90 days, it never only takes 90 days. It always takes longer than you think. So we needed all of that, 7 or 8 months.
And it's better to have longer, isn't it, just in case something comes up.
That's right, because That's right, because you've got to spend the money on architects and lodgement to council, and you don't want to have your contract expire and they pull the pin on it when you've got all this sitting in council ready to be approved.
Absolutely. Yep.
So we agreed on a deposit for $10,000, which was held in the conveyance's trust account. And we, aside from the approval for 8 dwellings by the 31st of August, we also negotiated a long settlement, which was 30th of October 2015. So that gave us time to say, if we did get the approval by the 31st of August and we didn't want to purchase it, we could potentially look to somebody else to buy it or assign our contract to someone else by the 30th of October.
That's reducing your risks substantially, isn't it?
Well, it's really not much money needed to be put down, other than for the architectural drawings, the lodgement to council.
And what sort of pricing is that cost, or will you cover that later?
Well, someone's got a dog barking in the back. So we budgeted for anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000. And I think we easily came in on that budget. We had a couple of little extra things we had to pay for that we weren't expecting, which we'll show you in a minute. But yeah, around 10 to 15, no more than 20.
Okay, cool.
I think what also turns out important here too is that the deposit was actually held by our conveyancer, which is
unusual.
It's unusual that it sits in their trust account, and he was okay with that, which was really good. And I think there's one more, because it was a long settlement, Anthea. What did you do?
Yeah, so whenever my settlements are greater than 6 weeks, and I'm not sure how it works in other states, but in South Australia, you can automatically place a caveat on the title to protect your interests, which is basically you've got it under contract. And so if they can't sell it to anyone else, so that caveat flags that, somebody's got some rights over the property.
Yeah.
And that was a great thing to do, as you'll see in hindsight.
So you've got your protection there with a caveat, and then your cost. So even though you put that deposit down at $10,000, if you weren't going ahead with the contract because you didn't get the approval done, for example, the only money you'll be out of pocket is that approval that you've got the 20 odd thousand.
The cost of the approval, we'd still get our deposit back.
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah.
So we had some plans. Plan A and Plan B. Plan A was we could complete the development and make about $450,000 was our estimate, maybe even more. We were really conservative with the estimates of profit. And that was if we got approval for 8 and built 8 and sold 8 dwellings and settled it. Plan B was that we would get the plans and permits and then assign the contract to somebody else and not take risk mitigation, take less profit, but take it earlier. Because the project to build would have taken an extra 12 or 18 months if we did build it. And we figured we might be able to make a profit of around $200,000 if we did that.
Which is pretty good, isn't it? Because if Plan B didn't work, then you could go to Plan A.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess you call it a low money down deal because we only had a small deposit. We didn't have any holding costs because we hadn't settled in that time period while we were getting it through council. And in South Australia, you really only pay stamp duty on the deposit when you assign a contract. You don't pay double stamp duty, as I think you do in other states.
Which is great. Another thing for SA.
Another good thing for SA. Good old SA. So we, with a little bit of juggling, we did get approval for 8 dwellings, and residents 2 to 8 were 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom dwellings with a garage and a visitor park, and the front residence was a Torrens titled, so standing on its own title, residence at the front, facing the front, with its garage facing the front street, and all off a common driveway.
Excellent. Nice and easily accessible.
That was good. We used a town planner to help us there, and it was interesting because if it had because of the interpretation of the development guidelines. It's a matter of some people interpret it differently. Some people want the well, it is a bit like tax, yeah. So we could average out the side areas, including the common driveway in this particular council, but initially they didn't really want to do that, but we ended up putting a bit of an argument through our planner and got that through.
Awesome.
Which was good. Approved.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! That was right on the knocker of August 2015.
Yeah, just looking at the date then.
Yeah, which is when we needed it to be approved by. But in the meantime, do you want to talk to this one, Robin?
Yes. Well, in the meantime, Mr. A's brother, it seems, didn't know what was going on, and he'd been sending all these notices to Mr. A. Well, at least his lawyer had, to say, pay up or I'm taking you to court. So he'd gone to court again, which it seems Mr. A was totally unaware of. He had his own lawyer, so I don't know what went on there. He'd gone to court again, and Mr. A got his position of being trustee revoked. So he was no longer trustee for the property. And
you wouldn't see that coming, would you?
No, nobody saw that coming. Maybe Mr. A might have, if he knew, or maybe if he opened his mail, I don't know if it was in his mail or if his lawyer disappeared. So we don't really know how that came about. It wouldn't have happened if the brother had have known the sale there was a signed contract. I'm sure he would have been happy. But this was very challenging because everybody we spoke to, didn't they, Anthea, said we've never heard that happening before. It's never happened before. Nobody's ever had this happen before. We go, yes, so we know that.
Will now be a precedent. Oh, that's what happened to Robin and Anthea before.
That's right. That's right. We're the precedent. Yes, so we got, I think it's on the next slide, we got some legal opinions, and we really just had to wait for the public trustee. There we go. Expect delays. Anthea will tell you the caveat. Thank you.
So if we hadn't have had a caveat on the title, we would not have found out that the probate had been revoked and that the public trustee were now involved with administering the will and the estate. And so that's the benefit of having a caveat on the title, was that we were then, our conveyancer who lodged the caveat for us then received a letter stating that the probate had been revoked, and so we knew what everything was about. And it also protected our interest, because if that caveat hadn't been there and we didn't know, the public trustee could have just as likely sold the property to somebody else, and we'd already spent the money getting plans approved and or getting plans into council. But I guess what we weren't sure about was the public trustee going to uphold our contract, because legally, when we got some legal advice, legally Mr. A was the executor of the will. At the time he signed the contract, he did hold probate at the time, and we checked all that. We had all that documentation. So legally we were told that they should uphold our contract. However, when we went to the public trustee, until they could get letters of administration, they wouldn't commit to anything. They wouldn't give us any idea whether they were going to continue with this contract, let it go through, what they were going to do. So we just had some legal letter written up to write to the public trustee to say this is our interest and we do want to settle, and we are continuing to want to settle, and we know there's going to be delays. And my husband then had to drive Mr. A into the public trustees, because he didn't have a driver's licence, and get all the documentation into the public trustee so they could lodge for letters of administration. I don't know if anyone's dealt with the public trustee before, but they are quite slow at the work that they do. And when they first lodged for letters of administration, it was incorrect and it had to be relodged. So the months go past often with all of this happening. And in the meantime, Robin had to placate Mr. A, because he was pretty angry about all this, and he was, what was he claiming? He was going to go and
go to the Supreme Court
and
not to
get
mention
a QC. He was going to hire a QC. He was going to fight it, and
and that wouldn't have helped your cause, would it? Because then it just means that you're going to have the contract stuck for longer,
and it would be tied up in court for a very long time. Yeah,
it gets dragged out, and that wouldn't have helped his cause much either, really.
The trouble is
Um,
sometimes people get angry, don't they? And they don't think about the consequences. They just want to have their say and, you know, prove themselves to be right. Whereas you girls just wanted to get it fixed. So, yeah.
Yes. We were lucky to have Rowan to drive Mr. A.
Well, what Robin hasn't told you is that one of the reasons she didn't go in the house, and one of the reasons we had to get Robin to manage Mr. A bit more, was because Mr. A had the hots for Robin.
Work that stuff.
That's right. Work it, girl. He was quite forward. I did explain from day one that I was a happily married woman, but he kept maintaining he liked a woman with a bit of meat on her. And I have plenty of meat on me, so I didn't really want to, one, go into his house, or two, be alone in the car with him for a long period of time. So thank you. Rowan used to stir me up about this a lot and tell me that, you know, I had to take one for the team or whatever. But I was the one that started to laugh when Rowan was the one that had to drive him into town and take care of all these other things.
Then we used to say Rowan was taking one for the team.
For the team, that's right. And I used to make jokes about how far will I go, and so it went on. Yes. So we had a bit of fun with that.
I guess we had to roll with these punches because we were in the deal and we were under contract and we'd spent money, and we in the meantime we thought, let's get ourselves organised to be able to settle. So I arranged some finance for Robin and Andrew to purchase this, because it was all going to be purchased in her name, and we were going second finance behind first mortgage. And the issue was when I ordered valuations, I had three different valuations come in. The first one was 600. Well, the first valuer refused to value it, and this is one of the dilemmas you might have trying to get residential finance when you're buying a development site, and it's getting a little harder even now. If best use for that property is a development rather than just a residential, then it may be deemed that it needs to have a different valuation, one that takes into account its development potential. So one valuer refused to value it because they said it was a development site, and because we had in there subject to council consent for 8, it was clear that it was being purchased as a development site, yet we were trying to settle it with residential finance. So eventually I met a valuer on site and just explained to him that it wasn't really going to be developed straight away, and that potentially Robin's family might move into the house.
Another one for the team, Robin.
That's right. And this is the first time Anthea discovered we actually had a granny fat. I didn't know there was a granny fat cat.
We couldn't see the driveway.
And a cellar.
Yeah.
We also had some problems with a conveyancer not keeping confidential information confidential, and it turned out that we can probably go on with that when you see what we did. And we also had some emergency orders, which were from the council. There was a brick fence at the front that was falling down, and it was a potential danger to any young child that might have crawled on it or climbed on it. And because the public trustee didn't have letters of administration, they weren't willing to do anything about it. And because Mr. A had no real interest in doing anything, we ended up hiring temporary fencing out the front to protect the fence from falling on anyone. So that was a little bit extra cost for us, but it was worth it doing.
Thinking, sometimes you just got to come up with a solution, haven't you?
Yes. So we had it on the market. Our lawyer had suggested not to put it on the market because they didn't really want to highlight to the public trustee that we had added value to it and it might be worth more now. So we put it on silently on the market, which meant we had an agent who dealt with a lot of developers in the area who presented it to the developers without putting it online.
It's an off-market deal?
It was not off-market, yep. And we did have quite a good offer come through from a Chinese purchaser, but that seemed to fall through. They just sort of disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. And we also had, delays with the public trustee getting their letters of administration and getting an absolute that we could go ahead with this contract. But our lawyer wrote up an assignment, and we did actually sell it in the end. Still waiting for the public trustee to get letters of administration, but we had a clause in that contract to say, not so much that it was under the public trustee, but it was very carefully written to say once letters of administration have been actioned, then we're willing to settle within 14 days of that. So we contracted it for $925,000 and we assigned it for $1.15 million. So the difference was our profit, which was $190,000 minus our cost. We'll go through the feasibility in a minute. Mm-hmm. We signed that assignment in April 2016. So remember, we got approval in August 2015 and probate was revoked in June 2015. So we're now nearly 10 months past probate being revoked, and we still didn't have any sorry, I'm hearing the dog.
John's trying to shut him up quietly.
So we had settlements set for the 1st of June. That was where everything was meant to happen. We were meant to get letters of administration by early May and settlement by the 1st of June.
And when you think about it, you said right at the beginning, like take note of the date that you actually found that property, which was, I think it was September
2014. Yes. Yeah. Yes. So for me, it was a little bit of a cost of a lost opportunity because we had to make sure that we had the money ready in case we had to settle. So we didn't necessarily do anything else with that money and didn't do another project. But, it was worth it. It was worth it to hang in there.
Yeah, looks like it.
But one issue was, a very big issue, is that Mr. A needed to move his things out before settlement.
Can't be a big issue. It's only one sentence.
So unfortunately, Mr. A was an extreme hoarder. And here's
another reason why I never set foot in the house.
Because you couldn't.
That's right. You couldn't get in there.
And it was extreme. I know you see these things on TV. But that 1,961 square metres of land was pretty much chock-a-block full of stuff. Every shed was full, every inch of the house was full. The kitchen only had little walkways to walk through, and it was full. And it was his mother's stuff, his stuff, years and years and years of hoarding.
But the contract says that he has to get it out, so he has to move.
So it's not normally the purchaser's responsibility to help the vendor move, but in our situation, our purchaser, who we'd assigned the contract to, refused to settle unless it was all gone, the whole lot.
You can't blame them, can you?
and Mr. A refused to get out of the house unless all his stuff went with him.
All of it went with him, so he wasn't ditching anything.
We didn't really want to ditch it, but we did. Let me just show you a few photos. That's the kitchen.
It's the kitchen. I can see a fridge freezer. Yeah, it must be.
Yes, yeah. There's a kitchen there. Yes, and he used to cook in that kitchen.
What's that?
I think that's the granny flat.
Okay. There might be a granny under there somewhere, but it's eluding us.
That could be the lounge room. Hard to tell, really. Oh. That's the backyard or part of it.
Is that rubbish? Is that just rubbish there?
No, it's all valuable goods.
We would call it rubbish, but Mr. A would not call it rubbish.
Mr. A didn't think it was rubbish.
Yeah, that's his back porch. See how high it is?
That's his shed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the back area at the back of the house. And that's his other property where we had to move it all to.
The landscaping.
Yes.
So he bought a whole heap of shipping containers, and he said, "I want
that shit
all moved into shipping containers." And look, it's really sad because it is an illness, and it is an obsession with belongings, and it was really tough for him, really, really tough. And we had some tough times. Yeah. So dead animals, there was plenty of things to find. Yes. So we decided to commence Operation Relocation, which was
hazardous by the looks of it.
My husband helped him to relocate over a period of 6 weeks. And that involved quite a lot of work. We hired in removalist trucks, we hired in skips. Robin was coordinating skips, and Rowan was calling up Robin saying, next skip, get it cleaned up. And we had 3 or 4 men there helping Rowan over a period of 6 weeks. 37 of those big skip bins were emptied. Having said that, if they didn't go fast, Mr. A would pull things out of them and retrieve things out of the skip bin. So they had to be moved pretty quickly.
He get a bit distressed about it, so we needed them gone quickly.
Yeah, a lot of the things, he didn't even realise he had a lot of this stuff. And it wasn't until we uncovered it and started putting it into skip bins that he realised he had things. And then he wanted to keep them. 500 boxes we went out and bought. He got in his 10 shipping containers. He loaded up the shed and more. It was endless. And all the while, we actually called somebody who professionally dealt with extreme hoarders, and I called her and said, what would you do? What would you do? And it turns out that Rowan had a really good rapport and skill with counselling, reassuring, but also we had to bathe his leg ulcers every day. The first thing he wanted me to do was cut his hair. So I got the clippers out and cut his hair. We packed a lunch for him every day so that he had good food. And amazingly enough, over that 6-week period, the district nurse said that his leg ulcers were better than they'd ever been. And my husband said, well, that's because I've been bathing them every day and feeding you.
Feeding him, yeah.
So the deal was we paid for all this moving. In return, we had Mr. A sign off letters every day on all of our expenditure to say that it would be reimbursed from his portion of the estate. And the total cost was $31,000.
Wow. Now, presuming with that, you made sure that came out of settlement.
Well, no, it couldn't. The public trustee had some other process, so it came out after settlement, and public trustee wanted more letters signed by Mr. A. So Robin had to track him down.
Yeah, they originally agreed, asked us to do some letters and get everything signed, which we did. We had to sign off every day, so he's fully aware of all the costs and all the rest of it. Then when I sent them in, no, they wanted him to sign something else, and they wanted to speak to him verbally. So I had to track him down and get him to call them and get him to sign something else too. So that was a bit challenging too. But we got there. We always got there. Every time we just got there.
So every day my husband came home, I would have a garbage bag at the door for him, and we would and I'd have gloves on and a face mask, and we supplied all the workers were supplied with face masks and gloves and safety glasses and all sorts of things, because it is mouldy and dirty and revolting. And so then I would sterilise his clothes in the washing machine at 90 degrees and then dry them in the dryer as hot as we could, and off he'd go the next day and do the same thing again.
He's traumatised though. He's still traumatised.
He was traumatised, yeah.
He's over it now, I think.
Once the money put in his account, it was a bit better.
Yes.
Well, interestingly enough, Mr. A said when the last truckload of gear went out the door, he said to Rowan, you did a really good job. Hey, I've got another property up at the Riverland. Do you want to come and organise that one too? And Rowan said, don't call me.
It's amazing he had all this property. You know, who would have thought?
Yeah,
yes, exactly.
And he also had a property in Lithuania as well that was apparently packed to the rafters also.
When you think about it, I mean, how many people would have seen that property and just walked away because it obviously was a lot of work, not just with the property itself, but with the person that you're dealing with, plus all the other stuff that came with it. So, you know, in lots of ways, you guys would have been angels for him, you know.
Well, I think we were naive in thinking that he was able to organise the relocation himself.
To start with. Yeah,
because when he had nearly 10 months to organise the relocation, and all he did was about 20 square metres at the front.
Yeah, front porch.
Yeah.
And that probably stressed him, Max.
Probably, yeah.
Having said that, though, he had other people, he had spoken to other people about the sale. He just hadn't committed to it. That was all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's down to you then, Robin.
Yes, it was down to me and my meats. I'm sure that's what got it over the line.
So just when we thought we were right and we had the place cleared, because the settlement date was 1st of June, and I think we gave him an extension till the 15th of June, he had realised that if he waited until after the 1st of July, he wouldn't have to pay land tax for holding it. But we wanted the money in by June for our own reasons. So we had to send him a default notice that if he didn't settle, then he'd be in default of the contract. So he did eventually settle just before the end of June. One of the other problems is Mr. A's brother was also a hoarder. And
there's a family thing going on here.
And he stole the front door because I think they had the impression that they could just help themselves to the windows and the doors and everything that they could possibly take. And we had to put a stop to that because we said, no, we want the house as a whole house. We don't want half a house or a pulled apart house. So, yeah.
It was big double doors too, that big double window sliding doors that came out onto the front porch. It wasn't just a door. And so you had exposed brickwork and an exposed room. And I tell you, I wasn't particularly happy about that one because if the new purchaser had seen it and said, that's not what I saw, I don't have to settle, well, then he may not have. But as it was, they boarded it up and the new purchaser didn't seem to be.
And to be honest, the new purchaser, because there was so much stuff there, you didn't know what was and what wasn't there in the first place.
In the first place, that's right.
You didn't realise there was a cellar because how could you know? It was all covered up. So there's the site. Soon after, the house was demolished, and I don't know if we've actually got pictures that he has finished. Has he? He's finished the
Yes, he has. I thought we put that in. Must be another one.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
I have seen a picture of the other one. I'll add that on to afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. And so these are our sort of numbers. We, as we said, paid the deposit. We paid planners and consultants and all sorts of other people, $21,000. The agent was $19,000, and our assignment fee was $225,000. So our profit was $185,000 that we split 50-50.
Cool. Well, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, that's 90,000 plus a couple, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
And that took even a year. It's longer than a year, I know, but from sort of contract to end, how long was that?
19 months.
Yeah. And you weren't working all the time on it. I mean, the last part obviously was very stressful. But, some people will work 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 or 9 to 9 for a whole year and then pay tax on top of that. And basically you guys are walking out with a bit of fun, a lot more experience, a really good presentation for property women and, something to go and buy a few coffees with. I think it's great.
Yes. No, it was definitely worth doing. It was just, I don't think we expected to, you would never have thought that all those things would happen. It was sort of probate being revoked and difficulty in relocation. But be warned, anyone who is buying off of a hoarder, that you may well have to write into the contract that you withhold 30 odd grand for the removal of things that aren't removed.
Yeah. I'm going to say, what lessons did you learn? And that was obviously one of them.
Yeah, if we ever contracted a hoarder's house again, I'll definitely have that written into the contract. But most hoarders won't leave without their stuff anyway. I mean, Mr. A was going to stand in front of the bulldozer. He was not going to let that house be bulldozed with his belongings.
It's very sad.
Important to him. Yeah.
Cool. So all those problems,
Words of wisdom. Roll with the punches. And I think, look, Robin and I worked really well together because we'd see the problem, we'd work out a solution, and we'd just decide who was going to do it, and we'd just get on and do it. We sought advice where we needed to seek advice. We'd have a contingency plan in place. Robin was good at dealing with Mr. A. Rowan was good at dealing with Mr. A. I was doing other things in the background, so we worked well together.
And that's the big thing, isn't it? We talked before about getting the right joint venture partner, because if you don't have that line of communication, that could have been a problem between you two, as well as having the problem with the property. So you really got to work together. That's great. That's great.
Yes, I think I've said once before, when Anthea was first talking to me about doing this with me, she asked me several questions and I told her things that had gone wrong. And I thought, oh, well, that probably wasn't a good thing to say. But I think in actual fact, because I always tell the truth, in actual fact it was, because I think that's one of the things she understood. When something didn't go right, I wasn't going to throw my hands up in the air and bury my head in the sand. I was just going to keep moving forward. Yeah. And that's what you need to do. There's just no point.
You need to be doing that as well.
Yes, that's right. You need to be on the same page. Yeah. Exactly.
Awesome.
So I think our motto for that one was sometimes you got to take one for the team.
Easy for you to say, Anthea.
That's right.
And we did have an interesting time with this peacock. We'll just tell you this story that Rowan found out from Mr. A that his mother used to breed peacocks and that she taxidermed a particular peacock. And when Rowan came home and told me this, I said, I want that peacock. And so he pulled it out from behind the couch and dusted it off, and out came this amazingly beautiful peacock, which I traded for Rowan's labour. at least the first day or two of labour anyway. And that peacock now sits in my lounge, in our lounge.
That'd be hard to dust, Anthea.
He's beautiful. Well, I get a hairdryer actually.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Give him a hairdryer.
It does look amazing.
And we've
known you, Rowan, for doing all that work for it.
Well, yes, but he ended up having to pay himself. I mean, it's 6 weeks worth of work. He did invoice his time.
His time. He did a lot for nothing, as we all did.
Did a lot.
We all did a bit, quite a bit for nothing. Yeah.
Well, it ends up being something, as you say, for the team, which is the key thing, but making sure that there's some fairness and some recognition of the extra manual labour that might go in some places.
Yes.
So that's awesome. So would you do it again?
Well, would we do it again, Robin?
If you knew what was going to happen, then you knew it was going to come out all right, but you knew what was going to come, would you still have gone into it?
I guess we would.
Yeah, I think we would. We had some fun. We made some money. It took a little while. It was Anthea, lost opportunity for her, but also my borrowing capacity was sitting there as well.
Yeah.
But, it worked out as we knew it would.
Yeah. We did actually have a loan approved for Robin to settle this house. So if it all went wrong, we would have settled it.
And then built.
So that you had the plan A after the plan B, so you had them lined up. Yeah.
If the assignment fell over, something went wrong with our assignment, then we were able to settle.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I have seen a picture, and I will include that in the text or whatever we have with this, the picture of the end result, because it looked amazing. You could see the 8 properties, and then the one at the front. And obviously the town plan had a lot to do with that, working out what could go on there. And that would make the big difference about how much you can make out of it. But how much do you think the developer themselves was making out of that deal after they would develop it?
We're not really sure. Depends on his build costs. But look, there could have been another 400,000 or 500,000 in it for the developer.
Yeah.
So isn't that lovely? So, the vendor, with all these mental issues as well as practical issues, finds somebody who's actually going to take on the deal and overcome all of the obstacles leading up to it, and help him health-wise, and give him something attractive to look at in the meantime, Robin. And then you've got you guys, where you've learnt a lot, you've had some fun, and you've made some money, and got some more experience, which is awesome. And then the developer who's come along, they've got somewhere that's already got everything, the plans, the permits, the structure, everything is organised, ready for them just to go in without having to wait for all of that, or to demolish, not to demolish, but to get rid of all the hoarding stuff, because you've already solved that problem. So you've solved the problem for the vendor as well as for the purchaser, and in between, almost a couple $100,000 between you. I think it's awesome. So inspiring. So anybody out there, you guys have to have put so many, I've got notes even from the second time that I've heard this presentation, and I won't go through them now, but just put in the text or anywhere that you're seeing this, put in the comments just one of the key things that you've taken out of this presentation, because it's really good for us to understand what it is that people see, and learn from some of these things that other people are sharing with you. And one of the wonderful things about women is that everybody's so eager and comfortable about sharing their experiences, good, bad, you know, ugly even. Not the peacock, of course, I'm just talking about the hoarding. And without that inspiration, you can get as much education as you like, but you won't take any action because you'll be too worried, or there won't be, you know, there won't be the fire in your belly to do it. But when you realise that you can have fun, you can do it with other people, you can share the load, share the risk, you know, share the excitement, the ups and the downs, and do it without huge emotion, because it's not just on you, it's, you know, it's on you as a team, that it makes it so much more interesting. And I mean, that's really what life is about, isn't it? Life should be fun, it should be profitable, you should do what you love doing, and that means you should also grow as you go. So I think you girls have got it nailed in a nutshell. And I'm so glad that you were able to spend this extra time with us and share this story, not just with South Australia, but with the whole of Australia. So that's awesome.
Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if we have any questions, send an email either to jo@propertywomen.com.au, or I'll also give you some direct contacts for Andrea and Robin and myself in case you've got any questions from there, and we'll put that in the text that goes with this. But for now, I just wanted to say a huge thank you for all the time and, you know, getting this all ready for us again. Really, really appreciate you sharing everything with us.
Our pleasure.
It's an all. Thanks so much, guys. You take care.
Thanks for asking.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Cool. That's a deal. Let me just stop. Oh, hang on, I better stop before I say that. Stop recording.